We begin things on this Monday in the NFL, recapping the best and worst from Week 12 around the league. And if we don't get to your team today, we promise we'll get to it tomorrow in Tuesday in our weekend leftover segment, because there is so much NFL to get to. We could literally spend the entire hour on it. All right, Sam, let's talk about what we saw yesterday. And I've kind of themed these two segments together to start the show today. Let's start in the NFC, where the Eagles just continue to be an enigma, Sam. I mean, they go into Dallas, they jump out to a 21-0 lead. Should have been a cakewalk. You know, Dallas gets the late touchdown end of the first half. You're like, okay, maybe. And then it's 21-14. Then it's 21-20. All of a sudden, the Eagles offense can do absolutely nothing. And meanwhile, Dallas is gaining in confidence, and they're able to score, Sam. And we're continuing to look at this Eagles team and just trying to figure out. It is such a conundrum, because they're going to run away with the NFC East. They're the first or second best team in the NFC. They are potentially a Super Bowl team. Yet we keep seeing these instances where these sorts of things happen with them, winning ugly, and this is an ugly loss. And we just continue to find ourselves in this position with the Eagles, Sam. And I don't know what to say anymore from a team that just seems to be so week to week.
Yeah, no, Jason, for sure. I think, this game is the outcome that the Eagles are going to have to live with, and Eagles fans are going to have to live with. This is what your team is, as long as I've stated on the show, my current belief is, as long as you have a GM and a head coach who are at odds the way they are, who clearly have a rivalry that nobody can explain, right? Not even these media people who cover this city, this sport from this city's perspective. Quite frankly, right, I don't think there's a better GM, head coach, quarterback combination in the National Football League. I know people are going to be quick to say, what about Mahomes and Reed? Well, the thing is, their GM ain't all that great, and here's the difference between player personnel people in Kansas City and Philadelphia, right? They tend to take not the best human beings and put them in a football uniform, right? But in Philadelphia, all of those problems stop when they get to Philadelphia. In Kansas City, all of those problems start when they get to Kansas City. So again, this is, in my eyes, far and away the best head coach, GM, quarterback combination in the National Football League. It's not particularly close. They're losing this game because, again, the entire thing that we've watched play out for the last 2.5 weeks in Philadelphia, the head coach and the GM, two of the best at what they do in the National Football League, if not the best based on their resume, right? They're clearly not seeing eye to eye. You see all these different reports coming out, all this different sourcing, all this stuff about Jalen Hurts. I'll tell you this right now. Jalen Hurts is one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And the fact that he's been able to keep this team with an 8-3 record through everything they've been dealing with this season only speaks more to that. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to be fine. Like Jason said, it's evidenced in the fact that they're still the second favorites to win the NFC, and I believe the third favorites or second favorites to win the Super Bowl. But as long as they have this ongoing beef, they're going to keep losing stupid games that they don't deserve to.
Can the Cowboys, it sounded silly last week when we floated the idea of the Cowboys being a wild card team. Yeah, look, you could throw your hand on your head all you want. They have looked better since making some of the moves they've made vis-a-vis Sauce Gardner, vis-a-vis Quinnen Williams. They continue to do things on the offensive side of the football that, have to make you feel hopeful. There is still a path for them to make the playoffs. I know the schedule's brutal. I get it. But that kind of performance, particularly in the second half yesterday, and getting stops the way they did when it mattered in this game, Sam, you've got to feel halfway decent. 30 seconds on the Cowboys' shot to make the playoffs.
The Cowboys have no playoff chances. Here are the teams they'd have to jump just to get into the playoffs. The Carolina Panthers, better than them. Sorry, Cowboys fans. And the Detroit Lions. I don't think that's even a conversation particularly close. There is a head-to-head between Detroit and Dallas that we'll see, and that'll be proven correct. Listen, San Francisco's getting in. Green Bay's getting in. I would guess Detroit's getting in. But all three of those teams and Carolina get in before the Dallas Cowboys do. The Falcons might get in before the Cowboys do.
I would tend to agree. I'm not going to, I'll give it like a 5% chance for the Cowboys to make the playoffs. I'll give it a 5% chance.
Yeah, I'd probably go like 2.5 because of the tie, right? That tie works against them.
The tie
People
works
forget.
against them. I agree. It helps the Packers. It works against Dallas for sure. The Rams win again last night. Matthew Stafford, just continues to do his thing that he's done all season long, playing at this MVP level. And the Rams could wind up being the 1 seed now. I mean, they have a very realistic path, obviously, with a game up on the Eagles and not having to worry about the tiebreak between the two, with the Eagles having won earlier this year. I picked the Rams to go to the Super Bowl and take on the Chiefs. I still feel that way, at least as far as the Rams are concerned. Nothing has dissuaded me from that. But if you are a Buccaneers fan, if this injury to Baker Mayfield is as bad, right now they're saying shoulder sprain, and Todd Bowles did not look optimistic in that post-game press conference. Now, his team just got pistol whipped, so I wouldn't look all that optimistic either. But, I mean, Tampa Bay could miss the playoffs altogether, Sam, if Baker Mayfield is out for an extended period of time.
I don't know. I think I'd even bet on Teddy Bridgewater in the worst division in football,
hands
down.
That
team is they're going to walk to that division. And here's the thing, right? If you're going to miss some time, Baker, now is the time to miss. The Buccaneers are playing this season so well. They're just flying right under the radar the whole time. Just as soon as they get into that Super Bowl conversation, let's lose some games. Let's get out of that Super Bowl conversation. Now Baker's got to miss a couple games. All right, well, the Cardinals are coming to town, and then the Saints are coming to town. So we'll be okay. Get your rest, Baker. Teddy, let's get that arm ready.
Carolina's got the same record as the Buccaneers right now. I'm just saying. It's not, I don't think it's a cakewalk by any stretch. And again, we'll have to see how much time he misses. Obviously, by the time you see this show, we might have more news on the Mayfield injury. All right, there's more to get to from the NFL. That was the big story in the NFC yesterday. We'll get to the AFC next. Thanks for being with us on this Monday edition of the show. Bill Bender of the Sporting News talks college football in 10 minutes. It was a great weekend for college football in the state of Connecticut. I just want to say that as a native of the Nutmeg State who now resides in Las Vegas. If you are a fan of football in the state of Connecticut, you had an amazing weekend. We'll get to that very briefly as we get to the big stories from the weekend in college football. Sam Yarnell, more from the NFL now, and of course, talking about the AFC side of the big stories from the weekend. And if we're going to do that, we've got to talk about Kansas City and Indianapolis. This was the game I had circled. Look, when the Colts were 7-1, I did a SportsWrap short questioning whether or not Indianapolis was fraudulent, whether they were a real contender to win a Super Bowl or not. And Indianapolis fans, hello over on Wish, watching us there in Indianapolis. Indianapolis Colts fans went nuts. I mean, they came after me hard. Oh, we're going to beat Kansas City. Kansas City under the Mahomes era, they never beat Indianapolis. And then yesterday happened. How you like me now? Look, the fact of the matter is, the second half of this game, what Indianapolis did was a travesty, an absolute travesty. They took their foot off the gas pedal. They didn't just have a chance to win and keep a stranglehold on their division. They didn't just have a chance to win and prove that they could knock off the team that has dominated that division for so many years, or dominated that conference for so many years. What they did yesterday, Sam Yarnell, was go out there and lay such an egg in the second half, played with such a lack of conviction, played with such a lack of urgency. They don't give the ball to a guy who's potentially the offensive player of the year in the NFL more than just a handful of times when it matters most. How should anybody in their right mind not agree with me now when we say, not just because of Daniel Jones and what he can or can't do when it matters most, but because Indianapolis went in there yesterday and showed they're not ready for prime time yet, Sam. They're simply not ready for prime time. They had a chance to take out the king. You had your shot to take out the king yesterday, and they failed miserably to do it. Kansas City still obviously has life in the AFC, Sam Yarnell.
So I think what is so funny about the collapse of Indianapolis yesterday is that there is a misconception that it was they came out of the second half locker room and they were just, Indianapolis was flat. It was all Kansas City. It wasn't even that long, Jason. It was just the fourth quarter. The Chiefs didn't score out of the locker room.
9 minutes.
Do you know how hard it is to keep the Kansas City Chiefs off the board in the third quarter?
9
And the
minutes.
Colts did it. They outscored the Chiefs 6-0. They had 2 field goal drives that were long. I think it was an 11-play drive and a 9-play drive each. It was exactly what they needed to do to win the game. And then the clock turned over to the fourth quarter, and they didn't get another first down. How insane is that? This is a team that ran 12 plays the entire fourth quarter, coming off of an 11-play drive to end the third. It's ridiculous how much this team just grabbed a bag and threw up in it as soon as the time changed over to the fourth quarter. As soon as we were 45 minutes through that game, it was wild. On the Chiefs side, I'm not gonna go crazy and say, oh, the Chiefs are back. The Chiefs are winning the AFC. The fact of the matter is they're not. They still have to play a perfect rest of the season to get into the playoffs because of the result that we saw on Thursday night.
Favorable schedule, though, Sam. Favorable schedule.
It's still nearly impossible to go 6 for 6, which at that point would be a 7-game win streak in the NFL. I think even in Mahomes' career, he's only done that like twice.
Sam, will they be they're not going to be an underdog the rest of the year, Sam. Maybe. No, even home against the Texans, they're not going to be an underdog the rest of the year, Sam. They're not going to be an underdog the rest of the year.
It'll be interesting. We'll see. But regardless, just because you're favored in the game doesn't mean you're going to win it. And they still have to face 2 of the 3 best defenses in the NFL before season's end. And again, it's never easy to go 6-0 in the NFL. I don't care if you got Tom Brady under center.
No, they're still having some of the same offensive problems, getting the ball into the end zone. Their red zone,
they didn't have the lead in this game.
I get it. Their red zone efficiency is, and that's one of the key things I look at throughout an entire season is what you do in the red zone, and they just continue to struggle in that area. And Indianapolis has been the complete opposite of that throughout the entire season. Only problem was yesterday in the second half, they just couldn't get there. Especially in the fourth quarter, they couldn't get there, Sam.
What I think is so funny about, what we were doing last segment with Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are a half or maybe quarter, I don't know how that's counted, game worse than the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs are 6-5. The Cowboys are 5-1 going into their matchup on Thanksgiving. I don't think that game is going to be as not contested as the books and a lot of people think.
I think it's going to be highly contested. Without question. I think it's going to be a very close game. Let's talk about, for a moment here, Jacksonville, because with Indianapolis losing yesterday, all of a sudden the Jaguars have a path. The Jaguars have an opportunity in front of them, Sam Yarnell, to potentially wind up winning what was once thought of as a runaway in the AFC South. They still have 2 games. They're a game back, Liam Cohen's team. They're a game back of Indianapolis, and they've still got 2 games against the Colts. I mean, you're sitting pretty right now if you're Trevor Lawrence and this team, which, had its struggles yesterday against Arizona, but Arizona's been in every game this year. I mean, there's a few teams in this league this year that I look at the records and I say, ignore the records. These teams could easily flip next year. The Giants is one of them and Arizona's another. Arizona's been in every game this year, Sam. They've been in every game. But talk about Jacksonville here in the final minute. Talk about Jacksonville now with an opportunity to win the AFC South.
They've been in every game since they benched Kyler Murray or quietly benched him or whatever that was. Because, man, when he was out there, it was ugly. Jacksonville is still a team, right? They have to go, like Jason said, play the Colts twice on the road and play the Broncos. They're not going to be favored in any of those games. So, best case scenario, they're favorites in half of their remaining 6 games. I just don't think it's enough. It really feels like, Jason, that entire division is going to come down to, well, not that entire division, but the Jaguars' chances of that division is going to come down to what we saw 2 weeks ago, that blown play against Houston at the very end, right? That lost them the game. That feels like it was the nail in the coffin for the Jaguars season. I just don't think they're coming back from that.
Jacksonville still feels like a playoff team to me, though. Especially when you look at where the Steelers are right now. Boy, it's going to be some crazy, wild scenarios when we get to the final couple of the weeks of the season, especially in the AFC where they're all bunched up so close. Bill Bender talks college football in just a couple of minutes. From the NFL to college football on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap, and every Monday we are joined by our friend Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Does a terrific job on all things football. We've been able to, we don't have to keep them away from sharp objects this weekend after the Packers did what they were supposed to do. How about them Chicago Bears, Bill Bender?
Oh, we'll find out all about the Bears over the next, 6 weeks when they play Philly and Green Bay twice and Detroit again. And but no,
Ben Johnson, Coach of the Year, man. Ben Johnson, Coach of the Year.
Well, they keep finding ways to win close games. That's what I've been impressed with. But, and that was another example of that. But those Green Bay, Chicago games are going to have a lot of heat on them in the next few weeks, no doubt.
I agree. All right, let's talk about college football, the reason we have you here. I want to get to two games. One, Oregon doing what it's supposed to do. It was interesting at times. It felt a lot closer than 42-27 when all is said and done. And Dan Lanning's got a lot of things he wants to say, and you're all going to listen. But give me some thoughts on Oregon, first of all, doing what it did against USC.
I think they're dangerous and underrated because they run the ball and they're good up front, and Dante Moore's continued to progress, and we penalized them more for a 10-point loss to Indiana than we've given them credit for anything else this year. And, they've been there, done that in the playoff. That was a fun game, Jason. Fun first half. I
agree.
In particular, the way USC was kind of getting up and down with them. So, it looks like a tricky line against Washington this week. This is the same Washington team that, Oregon compiled 10 sacks against in last year's game. So I think the Ducks will get to 11-1 and have a home game in the first round no matter what.
SportsWrap Shorts has seen me talk a lot about Miami and Notre Dame in our SportsWrap Shorts features and who should make it and who shouldn't make it and style points and all these different things. If style points matter, what does it mean when Notre Dame beats Syracuse 70-7 and Miami needs a late touchdown just to, sort of salt away a game against Virginia Tech?
Well, it means somebody at Syracuse made somebody at Notre Dame angry. I mean, that thing was 35-0 after like 10 minutes. The Irish are amazing right now. And I've gone back and forth on this debate too. But, right now Notre Dame's playing very good football. Jeremiah Love is probably going to shoot up the Heisman race. The only bad thing there where it might be a trap is he's not going to be in focus on conference championship weekend when guys kind of make their final case, whether it's Julian Sayin or Fernando Mendoza. So be careful with that unless he goes for like 300 yards against Stanford this weekend.
Bill, on the Jeremiah Love thing, first of all, just in case you missed it over the weekend, Jeremiah Love, 171 rush yards on 8 carries, averaged 21.4 yards a carry and 3 touchdowns. You mentioned it. That game was insane. 21-0 before the Notre Dame offense got on the field for the first time. But on the Jeremiah Love thing, someone posited me, but going into this weekend, listen, he's not going to win the Heisman. He's not going to have a chance because you're going to have a Big Ten title game that is essentially going to decide it. But he's going to chase that thing, and he's going to go for 100 and some odd yards and multiple touchdowns in each one of their games from here on out. And then he went and did this. How realistic would you say? Obviously, I think it's kind of become a foregone conclusion he'll be in New York. Can the kid actually, I know he's not going to be playing on conference championship weekend. Can he actually win it this week?
Yeah, it would have to be a monster performance. And or in that Big Ten championship game, Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin would both be average, right? Because their stats are so close and both have played so well all season. Maybe they both throw for like 180 yards. Love slips in and kind of I don't want to say it's not a backdoor, but the way he's played in November, averaging over 7 yards per carry, it goes back to the best player in the country argument, and he's certainly one of them.
I wanted to follow up on that really quick. Do you think, because I've seen this notion posited a lot of different places, does Ashton Genty not winning it last year have any impact on Jeremiah Love winning or not winning it this year?
I don't think so. I just think it's inherently harder for running backs to win the Heisman. Melvin Gordon had a year where he ran for over 400 yards in a game, and Marcus Mariota won the Heisman. It's just, it wasn't like that when we were growing up, in the 80s, like, well, me at least, old man like me, 80s, 70s, it was the running backs that won it every year. And, I think in some ways it's not fair. But if we were sitting here and saying, give me the two best players in the country, the best football players in the country, my first two guys would probably be Jeremiah Love and Jeremiah Smith, followed closely by Texas linebacker Jacob Rodriguez.
What are we to make of Utah, Bill?
Well, they've scored over 50 points a game in the last 3 weeks. They're making a very compelling case. They should have maybe lost that game against Kansas State, but I think they're giving Kyle Whittingham a heck of a, retirement tour here. They've been amazing. Now, can they squeak into the Big 12 championship game? I don't think so. I think Texas Tech and BYU are both going to take care of their business and open and shut that. But I mean, at the same time, Utah, we talked about that. They were very high in the early college football playoff rankings. They've stuck around. If they had the SEC label next to them, I think it would be a no doubt thing with this offense, the way they're playing. But they'll probably be one of those teams just on the outside looking in.
2-minute warning, Sam, go.
Bill, with the last 2 minutes, let's get to some coaches. The obviously more important one is Lane Kiffin. Everything's been going crazy over the last week. You got the message board, flight trackers. They're out in abundance, seemingly. He's supposedly going to make a decision on Friday, announce it on Saturday after the Egg Bowl. How do you read the whole Lane situation?
I mean, he's been putting those pages out from that book, The Pivot Year. I guess you got to read that first. Hard to know. The way I read it, which could be completely wrong, with no insider knowledge of Lane Kiffin's thinking, I think LSU gave him a hell of an offer, and he's going to have a hard time turning it down. That's what it feels like to me. And of course, it's going to impact everything on Friday in the Egg Bowl. I just sent a message to one of my editors. What's the over/under on sideline shots on Lane Kiffin? 6,000? Or how do you talk about the game when this is going on? It's you can't say it's not a distraction when it's the lead story.
In the last 30 seconds here, does Ole Miss get punished by the committee?
They shouldn't. And you can say Florida State and Jordan Travis, and that's fine. But if they go to 11-1, they should have a home game. I don't care who the coach is. And we said this last week. If Lane Kiffin leaves, I don't see a world where he's coaching that team in the college football playoff. Not through signing day. I don't think it'll happen.
That's insane. That is insane to think about. Lead a team all season and then this is the world we live in. Nick Saban talked about it on game day, and I thought very eloquently so. All right, we got another segment of college football with Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Don't go anywhere. One more segment with Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Does a terrific job on college football. Hangs out with us every Monday here on SportsWrap. Not to belabor this, but I make it a point to kind of jokingly mention UConn every week. And I wonder, you talk about coaches that could wind up moving around and stuff like that. Is Jim Moore along for staying at UConn, kind of rebuilding that program the way he has? Or do you get the sense that, he wants to sort of see it through and see how far he can take it?
They've been a really interesting independent, and he's done a nice job there. Not a nice job, a great job, fantastic job.
That program was on death's door, Bill.
Right. They were contemplating not being in the FBS, correct?
Yes.
So for him to do all that, it's been phenomenal. It really comes down to if he wants one more job like that. I know how it ended at UCLA, and it wasn't exactly great, but for him to do what he's done, he should be a candidate. He was a coach of the year candidate at Sporting News last year. He just happened to do all that when Curt Cignetti was doing what he was doing at Indiana. That was the wrong year to be a breakout coach.
Yeah, and it'd be a shame if he did leave, because he's done an amazing job with that program. Had to do a bowl game, 9 wins this year. Who would have ever thunk it? For UConn, one more thing. Yale and now the Ivy League being involved in FCS playoff football is very cool. They had 55,000 people at Yale Bowl for UConn, for Yale and Harvard, 141st edition of the game, with Yale getting the win over an undefeated Harvard team. Both teams wind up in the FCS playoffs. Central Connecticut State University also in the FCS playoffs. Shout out to my Blue Devils, who I did play-by-play for back in the day. Bill, state of Connecticut, let's go.
No longer a basketball state. I thought you were going to mention that Marion Local, a small high school in Ohio, had their 76-game winning streak snapped on it. The nation's best high school streak.
I can't go that deep.
76 games, guys, and St. Henry beat them. It's a phenomenal story. It's a really small high school program that had this long winning streak. But so somebody else is on the clock now, and it's not Marion Local. What a run by those guys.
Hats off.
76 games.
76 games is insane. 76 games is insane. But hats off to the state of Connecticut. Central, Yale, both going to the FCS playoffs, and obviously UConn. Go ahead, Sam.
What is the last season that team lost in? That's crazy. I'll say this: Yale Bowl, one of the most historic venues in college football. Jim Mora, one of the best follows in college football. Check out his X account; it rocks. Bill, the ACC's been turned on its head. It looks like we're staring down the barrel of an SMU UVA title game, barring a Virginia Tech upset this weekend, right? So when the committee looks at this, after doing what they did last week with Miami, how do you expect them to go about seeding the ACC, if at all? Because we could have a 3-loss ACC champion.
How bad is Miami going to hate SMU when the Mustangs win the ACC? And this happened last year, right? Where SMU gets in the playoff, and Miami might have been the better team. Now, they did play head-to-head this year, and SMU won the game. I get all that. But the Mustangs look like the team to me. I know Virginia. I have Virginia in the playoff in our bracket right now because it's more of a sure thing, it seems like, for them to get to – they're double-digit favorites at home. They should get to Charlotte. What else can shake it up? This Miami-Pitt game, I don't know how you can shake up this conference even more than it already has. So I do think SMU and Virginia will take care of those games. And if not, it opens the door, obviously, for even more craziness out of that conference.
Is there a world that we get? So Georgia Tech, if Georgia Tech beats Georgia, Duke wins. Is there a way that we get those two teams in the championship game somehow?
Well, as I put, there is a scenario.
Georgia Tech's not beating Georgia, though.
No, if we got a bunch of upsets this week.
I don't think so.
I wrote this that I believe if you include Notre Dame, there are 17 Power 4 schools with 2 losses or less. If we get some upsets, here's the thing. We argued about all the 3-loss teams not making the college football playoff last year. There's going to be some 2-loss teams left out this year, out of power conferences. And they're going to be the ones being like, whether it's Miami that gets left out, whether it's a Vanderbilt team with 10 wins, let's say Michigan somehow beats Ohio State, they could still get left out at 10-2. You think Michigan's going to take that well, being a 10-2 team that finishes outside the top 12? All of these things could happen.
Sam, let me ask one about Arch Manning here, because look, a lot of people buried this kid early on in the year, myself included, by the way. I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't critical of Arch Manning. The way he has sort of, reclaimed his spot or, been sort of a reclamation project throughout this season, given where he started, where he is now, what he did this weekend against Arkansas. A thought on where Arch Manning is as we sort of get ready to round out this season.
Well, some national writer wrote ahead of Red River that give the kid time, he'll be all right. I can't remember who that guy was, but, I will say this. Last 4 games, 328 yards per game, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, and then you'll still hear critics say, well, he's playing bad defenses. No, he's just playing better. And he played all right against Georgia, and I think here's his opportunity to really step out. I actually think they're going to beat Texas A&M at home. I do. Wow. I think if the pass defense has got to hold up, they rank 12th or 13th in the SEC in pass defense. Marcel Reed's going to be a challenge for them, but I think Arch continues this role. And, in that rivalry in Austin, Texas Texas is going to stand up, I think, in this game with that rush defense, make a win. Arch Manning makes a few plays. Guess who will be number one in the preseason rankings next year? I'm making a joke there, but you get where I'm going with that.
Fair enough. Bill Bender does a terrific job on college football. Check out his work over at the Sporting News. Give me one team that's going to be the biggest surprise in the college football playoff rankings this week. One team, quick.
We'll go. I really don't have one. Let's go with SMU. We'll see how far they'll jump up more than usual.
Welcome back to the show. Why is John Morant messing with Klay Thompson, by the way? Can I just say that? I mean, come on, John Morant. At least be playing. And if you're going to play, at least play well. If you're going to talk junk to Klay Thompson, who's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. Like, come on, man. Only way John Morant's getting to the Hall of Fame is with a ticket. All right, Sam Yarnell. Even in the NBA, even in basketball, where everybody makes the Hall of Fame. Sam Yarnell, I want to talk a bit about the NBA and WNBA for a couple of minutes here on the show. I bring up the WNBA for this reason. There is a really something I'm trying to figure out. So Dallas gets the number one overall pick in the WNBA, right? The draft lottery, all that stuff. So Dallas, the Wings, get the number one overall pick back-to-back years. They get Paige Beckers last year. They're going to get whoever the number one pick is this year. I guess there's no real consensus on who that is going to be. But here's what I'm wondering. If the league shuts down, which is a distinct possibility here by November 30th, is there a draft? Like, let's say there's no season next year. If there's no draft, what happens to the players that are supposed to get drafted? Does anybody actually know the answer to this?
I believe there's still a draft.
I don't know, because there's also supposed to be an expansion draft. And my understanding is the expansion draft cannot happen.
Right, that won't happen. But think about it, right? From a practical or from a business standpoint, you're drafting people who become members of the union once they are on the team. So they have to be on the team to become members of the WNBPA, right? Whereas with the expansion draft, you're drafting players who are already members of the WNBPA, right? And the two sides that are having lockouts, the WNBA owners or governors or whatever they call them, the WNBA, and the WNBPA. Gosh, that's a mouthful every time, man. But my point is, I think because the way that the NFL did it during their lockout in 2012 is that they had the draft and then the rookies just couldn't come to the building. It was like you sign your contract and then you have to leave and you can't come back.
It's a weird thing. And I was saying this during the break, and I'll just throw it out here real quick. If Azzi Fudd winds up being the number one overall pick, which some people believe she could out of UConn, she had a big game this weekend. Maybe this weekend, or it might have been late last week. She had like 31 for the UConn women in a win. She is in a relationship with Paige Beckers. And I said, there is something very weird about the idea of drafting a player onto a team. Because on the surface, you'd say, great, you'd have a happy player, two players on the team. What if they break up? What if they're married and they divorce? It's this weird dynamic that only takes place in the WNBA that you can't talk about in any other league, because obviously we don't have that dynamic that exists in male sports. But in women's sports, you could have an Azzi Fudd and a Paige Beckers on the same team together. They're in a relationship. That dynamic carries itself out onto the court. It's a fascinating thing that it feels like it lends itself to a documentary series or a docudrama series. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is definitely it's unique, right, to the WNBA.
Yeah.
But what I'll say is this: it's not unique to like America, right? There are people who have workplace relationships all the time that are completely like fine, and like HR is okay with it, and like all that stuff happens. Like, it's not super unnatural from like an American workplace perspective. It's just we don't see it happen all the time in sports, which is why but I'll take that back, because we do see it happen all the time in sports. People just don't talk about it, right? Like, there are so many times where sideline reporters have been married to athletes playing in games. games,
point.
right? Or Joe Buck's wife is for a period of time was the Monday Night Countdown host on ESPN, and Joe Buck was the play-by-play commentator for Monday Night Football, right? These workplace relationships happen very frequently within the world
Maybe
of
more
sports.
than we think.
We just only talk about it when they're both athletes and they both happen to be women.
Because it is an interesting dynamic. It'll be fascinating to watch. Don't underestimate what this means in a Western Conference in the NBA as we shift over to the NBA for a couple minutes. What this means at the top of the West, where Oklahoma City has just been a monster and a juggernaut, for the Nuggets to miss Aaron Gordon for 4 to 6 weeks, he is a vital part of everything that team does. He continues to get better with age. That guy being out 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring injury, that is a huge loss for that team, and it just feels like it kind of opens things up for Oklahoma City in the West, Sam.
Jason, you're talking about a guy who in year, I'm trying to do the math, 11 is having a career year. Like, it's just not NBA stuff. Yeah, it's a huge loss for a Nuggets team that, I hate to say this because I guess last year, but no, I'm a Laker guy now. Why do I hate to say this? This is a team that is just trying to keep pace with the Lakers in the West, and they're going opposite directions right now. The Lakers are going like this, and the Nuggets are going like this. So the Western Conference is going to be very interesting come playoff time for those lower seeding matchups, right? But I am very interested to see where the Nuggets are in 2 months from now compared to the Lakers.
Sam, the Lakers are 12-4 out of the gate, and they just got one of the greatest players in the history of basketball back in LeBron, who last night, 17 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds on 8 of 18 shooting, still trying to get the shot back, obviously, in 34 minutes. And Luka last night, 33, 11, and 8. He did have 6 turnovers, but he did also have 3 steals as the Lakers get a win in Utah on the road.
Right. Anytime you win back-to-back games against the same team, it's impressive in the National Basketball Association.
Agreed.
Here's the thing. This Lakers team, not only are they 12-4, right, Jason? They're 5-1 in their last 6, and that one loss is to Oklahoma City. Here come the Lakers. The Lakers are back.
Yeah. Still think they need a 3-and-D guy, though. They're gonna have to make a deal at some point along the way. We'll see what what things sort of look like for the Pelicans, because they might be on the chopping block to deal some guys. We've got odds and ends next. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby. Start of a holiday week. We'll be off on Thursday for Thanksgiving. Specialty programming from SportsWrap on that day. No idea what it's going to be yet, but it'll be something. I promise you. We got plans for you. And then Friday, obviously, Black Friday NFL football. We got stuff planned for you for the rest of the week. Sam Yarnell, before we get to odds and ends, a couple of reminders. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can watch this show Monday through Friday. We appreciate you doing that. Perfect audio, 45 minutes. Makes great listening while you're driving to work, on the treadmill, at the gym, whatever it may be. You can also watch this show on about 270 affiliates in the U.S. and Canada. Hello to our friends watching in Canada. We love you guys. But you could also watch this show on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Go and check it out. Subscribe. Sports Wrap shorts are there as well. The show is there Monday through Friday. Pro tip, it's there before it's anywhere else. You can watch Sports Wrap with Jason Page. So if you don't have time to watch it on TV, we'd love you to do that. But if you can't, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel is an option for you. And again, Sports Wrap shorts available there. On the top stories in sports, we've got you covered. The biggest games, we got you covered. If you watched over the weekend on our YouTube channel, we had tons of content there for you. Sports Wrap shorts also available on our Instagram, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page. Easy to remember. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, on this Monday, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam. There was a trade in Major League Baseball this weekend. I was just commenting during the break that there are a huge list of names of guys that are non-tendered. And that, I mean, you can make up a baseball team just out of the non-tendered guys, and it'd probably be halfway decent. Adolis Garcia was a name I just noticed that popped up on that list as well. But I wanted to talk about a trade that was made over the weekend. And it just feels like the sort of thing the Mets do here in the offseason. They go and swap Marcus Semien. They go and get him from the Rangers in exchange for Brandon Nimmo. What did you think when you saw the deal?
I loved it, and then as a known Mets hater
basher.
and someone who doesn't think that the Mets are Mets basher, guy who does not think that the Mets are a well-run organization, and quite frankly, they're kind of addicted to choking like nobody's business. I mean, exemplis gratis, right? This past season, you don't have to go all that far back to find it. But I love this move, right? Marcus Semien, proven winner, right? Got World Series champion, something no Met since 1986 has been able to say. Right? Marcus Semien, a guy who finished top 3 in MVP voting in 3 years in a 5-year stretch less than 2 years ago. I know that was a lot of numbers, but he's really good at baseball. And he's good at baseball in a spot where the Mets need it, right? They've had, I'm sorry to say this, and I know there are some Met fans who may disagree with me, they've had a rotating door of second baseman since Daniel Murphy left, and second base is an incredibly important position in a lineup constructed the way the Mets have loved to construct lineups for the last, 20 years. So I love this move for Marcus Semien, and there are tons of Mets fans who were in love with Brandon Middo. That's my nickname for him because he is quite literally the most mid, maybe lower end of mid baseball player that you could find out there in terms of everyday major league starter. And you're replacing him with a stalwart guy at second base, with a guy who doesn't miss a lot of time either, right? He's played 159 plus games in 4 out of the last 5 seasons. That is exactly what the Mets need right now. This was a great trade for the New York Mets, and it's actually selling me more on this team heading into next season.
Oh boy. That is bad news for you, Met fans. Monday Night Football, Sam Yarnell. We've got ourselves a showdown in the NFC between the Panthers and the 49ers. The Panthers, as we mentioned, tied atop the NFC South right now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are dealing with some injury issues. We've got Carolina plus 7.5 on the road against the Niners. Your total is 49.5, which feels a little high to me, Sam Yarnell. I'm liking the under in this game.
I'm loving the over. High total, and we're going above it. I think that we get points aplenty out west in this game. Between how injured that San Francisco defense has been lately, how good the Carolina offense has looked lately, and it feels like they're still not buying all the way into, not saying that I am either, to Brock Purdy coming back. Listen, he'll be able to get it done in that offense. I like the over in this game. I do not like a lot of defense tonight on Monday night. And I'll tell you this too, Jason. I don't mind the Panthers getting more than a touchdown. You're going to give me more than a touchdown with one of the hotter teams in the NFL right now? I'll take it with the Carolina Panthers. Give me Carolina, the dog getting 7.5, and give me the over the high total of 49.5.
How about Bryce Young? Over 300 yards passing, plus 680.
That's asking him to do a lot. That's asking him to do a lot.
The guy threw for 4 and change like last week against Atlanta, didn't he? Atlanta's supposed to be a pretty good defense.
I don't know. It could be a big Rico game. They might just get hit with the Rico in this game.
Explain that.
It's a Drake song from way back in the day.
Because I had no idea. All you crazy kids. I don't know. No idea. Drake?
Drake?
Isn't that a cake? We'll see you tomorrow. Hi there. I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? Subscribe. We've got SportsWrap shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? You probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half as exciting. They're not half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.